Hi, everyone. I will be doing my advocacy project on promoting adoption of older foster care youth, the hardships and stigmas of being too old in the system. Personally, this is a big topic for me because I used to work with older youth in the foster care. More specifically, I worked with unaccompanied refugee minors. But still, they were 14 to 18 years old, and all of them wanted foster placements, and it was really hard. So let's get into it. So, teenagers in the system. Teenagers in the foster care system find it way harder to get adopted than their younger peers. Negative stigmas surrounding them aid in these off-balance adoption ratios, and being in the system until they age out can cause a slew of mental health and behavioral disparities. Like I said, when I worked with a lot of teenagers, they really hoped for a family placement, but because of a lot of the stigmas that were around teenagers in the system, there were not a lot of families that wanted to take a chance on them, and would tend to go for the more younger children that they think are easier to handle and possibly adapt to their family system than an older child. So the data, more than 23,000 children will age out of the US foster care system every year. And after reaching the age of 18, 20% of the children who were in foster care will become instantly homeless. This is not a piece of data that I had previously known, and it's just outstanding to me that we as a country can allow something like this to happen to these kids who have already had such hard lives. And then more specifically in Michigan, 1,600 teens will age out of foster care every year. That's just an outstandingly high number for a group of kids to just have to go through. So how does this affect these teens? So here's a little image. It was a part of an article by the Lutheran Family Services that they put out in this year in 2022. So teens in foster care need family support just like any other teen. Without family support, foster teens have experienced the following. 10% had children by age 19, and the additional 28% had children by age 21. 20% had been referred to substance abuse treatment by age 19, and an additional 13% between 19 and 21. 38% were incarcerated by age 19, and an additional 27% were incarcerated by age 21. Youth who were expecting homelessness are on average approached by human trafficking or traffickers within 72 hours of being on the street. That is a terrifying, terrifying reality for them. And 62% were unemployed at the age of 19, and 47% were unemployed at the age of 21. All of these statistics show how much we are failing as a community and as a society, how we are failing those older teens or older youth within our system, and we're not setting them up for success once they age out. So race disparities of children in the system for Michigan. So I only put white Americans and Black Americans on here, or Michiganders, because they had the most substantial numbers, and the rest were just kind of lumped together. So 66.1% white, and there's 16% Black children and youth in the Michigan foster care system. So why do teens struggle in the system? There was this nice little article written by someone named Poppy O'Donnell in 2016, and she herself was youth in the system. And this is what she had to say about some of the stigmas around why teens are struggling. And it says delinquent, orphaned, troubled, aggressive, neglected. What do each of these words have in common? They are all words used to stereotype and confine youth in the foster care system. Plenty of negative stigmas are surrounding these kids, and they are often categorized as troublemakers and seen as too much work. A lot of this is just untrue. Because they are placed in more group home settings, it's hard for them to get one-on-one care, which, yes, sometimes might lead to behavioral issues. But I mean, that's no reason to give up on a child, and it's not the majority, which all these stigmas make us believe. A nice quote from that article as well that I enjoyed is, "I think there's a lot of misconception about teenagers that maybe they're scary or they're in care because they're troublemakers. That can't be farther from the truth. These are great, great people. They are in bad situations sometimes, but they're not in care because of something they've done." So what can we do to help? One of the biggest things I think we can do is to educate foster parents and potential adoptive parents of these misconceptions. If a foster parent is going to go into being a foster parent with the thought process like, hey, I don't want these older kids because they're going to cause trouble in my home and possibly with my already existing, my biological children, um, they're not going to sign up to bring these kids into their home, which could be super impactful and helpful for them. So just to get these misconceptions out of the way, I think would make a big impact. Also, to advocate for more mental health services for these teens so that the ones that do have these behavioral issues can get the help they need and then be a better fit for a family type home. And then the last thing was just to become a foster parent yourself if you feel called to it and if you have the finances and the means to do so. I think that we need more educated, like not or educated to the point of like educated in the reality of what foster care is. Those kind of people to be brought in as foster parents and to volunteer out their homes and their time to just help these kids. So why recruiting foster parents who are willing to take in older youth is so important. So in an article by Wiltz in 2019, we see this graphic right here where it talks about how older foster kids are less likely to be placed with families. So only 58% of 13 and older will be placed with families, and that's a huge contrast to 12 and under, which is 95%. A lot of these outburst behavioral issues, I feel like are, I mean, just cries for help to be in a family like setting where they can be less stressed out and have more of a normal feeling life. I wanted to finish on this quote from a former foster youth who had aged out of the system, and he had said, "We are not equipped to go through this world alone." So in group homes, while as I've said, I've worked in one, I know that there are good things about them. It's also really easy for these kids to feel alone because there's so many other kids within the house. I know that the group home I worked in had 15 boys, and it's hard to not feel alone in a situation like that. So getting kids in with families or being adopted would really crush that feeling of being alone and set them up for success later in life. All right, here's all the references I used. And again, I just want to stress that if you feel like you could foster or you are drawn to that, consider bringing in an older child and adoption, the same thing. These kids need homes just as much as the younger kids do. So if you feel called to that, I greatly would push you in that direction. Thank you.